All right, so here we go. Today we're talking about area of polygons. So how much space does the two-dimensional polygon take up on the surface? So perimeter, which we've done before, is the distance around a shape, in this case, quadrilaterals. Area is sort of the space inside the shape, the flat space that it takes up. If you looked at a tile floor, how many tiles does it take to cover the floor would be sort of the equivalent. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with a rectangle. Rectangle is sort of the most straightforward, the most simple formula, and probably the one that you're the most familiar with. Most importantly, we are looking for whether or not you are writing the formula, are you substituting numbers into the formula, and does your final answer have units? Units for area problem are square units. So how many square tiles does it take to cover the floor? All right, so area of a rectangle. When we're doing this lesson, I'm going to be using a pink highlighter and a blue highlighter. If you have highlighters at home and you want to add this into your notes, since your notes are in black and white, might be helpful. Polygon ABFG, if we name it as we go around the shape, the name ABFG, if we want to find the area, we need to use the formula for area of a rectangle. Area of a rectangle is length times width. Now when I type the L for length, I can do italics, which makes it sort of slanted, but when you're writing it, you should be writing length as a cursive lowercase l so that it does not look like a 1. So area equals length times width. We don't know the area, it would be a variable, in this case a. Length times width. So the length of the rectangle, also sometimes known as the base, and the width of the rectangle, the idea would be the height. Those are the two numbers that we're going to multiply. So length, 1.3, multiplied by the width, 1.1. The area, 1.3 times 1.1. And we bring our decimal point in two places, 1.43 feet squared. So the number of squares that are 1 foot by 1 foot that would fit inside that rectangle. So making sure that we have our formula, making sure that we're substituting our numbers in, and that we've got a final answer with units squared. Perimeter is also something that we're going to ask you to do. We know perimeter. This is just a review. Perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Notice that cursive lowercase l. So 2 times the 1.3 plus 2 times the 1.1. That gives us 2.6 plus 2.2, which is 4.8 feet. So we could say the perimeter is 4.8 feet. The distance around, if I were to put a fence around this rectangle, it would be 4.8 feet long. The next category are parallelograms and rhombuses, also known as rhombi. I'm going to use blue for the base. So if this is the base, then this is the height. The base and the height always have to make a 90-degree angle. So hint number 1, look for that right angle symbol. On this one, the base along the bottom, the height, again in this case, vertical. Look for that 90-degree angle symbol. This one, if you notice the 90-degree angle symbol is over here, that makes this the base and this the height. If it helps, turn your paper and look at it this way. This is your base, and then 90-degree angle, your height. Some students also notice that the height has something in common on all three of them. The height, often represented by a dashed segment. So if you notice that one of the segments is inside the polygon and dashed, that's a pretty good tip-off that it is the height. So I have 2 shapes down here at the bottom, 2 quadrilaterals. I have a rhombus over here on the side. I know it's a rhombus. All 4 of the sides have a single tick mark. So if this side is 7.5, this side is also 7.5 centimeters. So when I go to find the area formula for rhombus or parallelogram is base. Notice it's a lowercase b, height with a lowercase h. So area equals base times height. In this case, the base, 7.5. I looked for that little right angle symbol, and the height with that dashed segment going at a 90-degree angle is 8. So 7.5 times 8. I can't multiply a mixed number times a whole number, so I'm going to change that to 15 halves times 8 over 1. I also happen to notice that I could simplify 2 divided by 2 and 8 divided by 2. makes it just a little bit easier to work with, and it's 60 over 1, or 60 centimeters squared. Area equals base times the height. Think of that rhombus as a rectangle that has, or a square, sorry, that has started to tip over. Instead of being length times width, I no longer have a length and a width, I now have a base and a height. The other thing we're going to ask you to do is perimeter. All 4 sides are the same, so we can do 4 times the side length. So that would be 4 times a side of 7.5. And that perimeter, now I can use some space over here if I didn't leave myself enough room. 15 halves times 4 over 1, simplify, and I would get 30 over 1, which is just 30 centimeters for the perimeter. You'll notice over here, look for that little right angle symbol, look for that dashed segment. If that dashed segment is my height, and I'm looking for the base to be at a right angle, this one is going to be sort of sideways for us. Still the same formula, area equals base times height, lowercase b and h. Area equals a base of 1.1, a height of 1.5. So off to the side. And move my decimal point into its correct spot there. Area equals 1.65. The units are feet, so area would be feet squared. Also want to practice my perimeter. 2 times the 1.1 side plus 2 times the 1.7 side. And some people are like, wait, why'd you use 1.7? Well, if it's perimeter, it's around the outside. This side is 1.1. This side is 1.7. So I've got 2 1.1 sides and 2 1.7 sides. That's going to be 2.2 plus 3.4 for a perimeter of 5.6 feet. If I was going to fence that in, I would need 5.6 feet of fencing. Last but not least, we're going to talk about squares. Squares are easy to identify. They're usually the thing that we see the easiest, the fastest. All sides must be congruent. All 4 angles must be right angles. Because the angles are always 90 degrees, you can use any of the sides since every pair of adjacent sides would be at a right angle. Well, since they're all the same, we usually say that the area is side times side, or side squared. So I've got an example here. Side times side would be 8 times 8. I don't need a base and a height. They're all the same. I just pick a side. Area, I don't need a base and a height. I just need a side because they're all the same. So 2.5 times 2.5. This one has sides of 2 1/4 feet. I don't need a base and a height. I just need one side. So let's say I'm going to do area equals side squared. Area is going to be 2 1/4 squared. Now that's tricky. I've got to do 2 1/4 times 2 1/4. I'm going to turn that into an improper fraction, 9/4 times 9/4. And I'm going to get an area of 81/16. There's nothing to simplify with the 9 and the 4s. So 81/16. And since it is area, it's going to have to be feet squared. It's like that mistake never happened. But it did, but now it's whited out. 81/16 feet squared. Or you could say how many whole times does 16 go into 81? 5 whole times with 1/16 left over, and that's feet squared. Yes, you need to write your formula every single time. It should be the first thing you write down. Next, show your substitution. What are the numbers or the number I'm plugging in? And then simplify. Make sure your final answer also has units. There's a nice short little list here of all the area and perimeter formulas you're going to need. Perimeter is the distance around the polygon, so you should have already had all of the perimeter formulas. If we look at this square, all 4 sides are the same. So perimeter of a square, 4s, just like the rhombus was. So the perimeter is going to be 4 sides, 2 1/4 each. 4 is the same as 4 over 1. 2 1/4, we already said over here, was 9/4. And if you simplify those fourths, the perimeter is just 9 feet. So not terrible, but you do have a nice little short list on the back. Yes, you are going to have to memorize them. Yes, we are going to use all of them. For now, we're just talking about squares, rhombi, parallelograms, and rectangles. We'll add some more shapes in next time. Don't forget, if you have any questions, make sure that you're writing down your questions, make sure that you're taking notes, that you are ready to go on Google Classroom to post your homework, make sure that you are conversing with your teacher if you have any specific questions on the notes or the homework. Also that you're talking to your advisor if you have any general questions about school, and that you're participating in advisory. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.